What did I want to ask you? Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, he mentioned the Platonic totalitarianism in the
Yeah.
Republic, and then so Confucius is similar. And I just all I know about Confucius is that he believes that the state should be founded on virtue, but virtue to him
Yes.
is loyalty to some like family,
Family,
and well, that's what piety is, right? Loyalty to family, and then that in turn means
basically.
loyalty to the state because the state is like a big family.
I think to some extent, that's the way that Confucius might not be as absolute, but then he made it more context based, basically, is kind of what I'm saying. So Plato didn't really think it could work in reality.
Right.
But Confucius kind of lessened it, but it works in reality. And that's what it is, Chinese state, where the state determines everything.
Right.
They determine what research is done, where the money goes, everything. Even what you study has to be granted by the state in some way, that they
So
have complete control of everything.
okay, so it's like Confucius, at least in the politics, is the same as Plato, except Confucius actually made efforts to implement it, whereas Plato said, "Oh, this won't be uh,
Yeah,
practicable because of the appetites of the men who are not perfect
yeah,
reflections of the forms."
yeah. There are some more complexities, but the essential point I'm making is that Confucius kind of did a contextual version of that. So it's not as hardcore, but it's
Yeah,
still totalitarian.
yeah,
Still
yeah,
no respect for rights.
yeah.
It's still
Um,
like it still squelches individuality.
well, Lee Kuan Yew was heavily inspired by Confucius, although he's economically turned Singapore into, they've gone from like
Yeah,
essentially a swamp into a financial center.
yeah,
And at least the political side of him, not the economic. I don't know how the economic would interact with the Confucian, but at least because China also opened up in 1978, right? So similar, but at least the
yeah,
Confucian side of him is strong. You get you get a card when you go to Singapore. Like if you have any drugs, you will be put to death, and and drugs, by the way, can include prescribed medicines in Western countries. And you're not allowed to chew gum, so there's some of that in there, right, too.
yeah.
Um, do you remember in Atlas Shrugged there's the harmonizer, the
No,
Thomson harmonizer?
I don't remember.
Stadler helps developing this machine which manipulates cosmic rays to create like some kind of
Oh,
sound that it causes things to
yeah,
explode,
yeah.
and they end up calling it the harmonizer.
Oh, yeah, I remember it.
Do
Project
you
X, I think it
Yeah,
was
Project
involved.
X. Do
Yeah, I
you know
remember
if
that.
there's a link there to? I don't know what. I don't know if the Soviets also used the concept of harmony, but I know that Confucius says that um, Confucius says that the the responsibility of the state is to educate its citizens in order to put in the foundations of um, moral harmony, or like I forget, but it was something to do with harmony, basically social harmony or something like that. The purpose of the state is to ensure the social harmony of its
Yeah,
citizens.
I
And
never
so
actually noticed that. I took it as just the physics term when I read it, but that is a
uh,
metaphorical use of the word harmony, the harmonizer. I didn't think of the metaphorical use. That's
okay,
interesting.
yeah, I don't know if there's a link, because I don't know if it might just be a Confucian term, in which case it's probably, like you pointed out, harmony as in musical, but I don't know, maybe there is something there.
Yeah, I mean, the natural harmonic frequency, you blast it at something, it should destroy it. And there's that, but then it's interesting to say that this drug, like the harmonizer, it's like making everybody altruistically together as one into harmony
Right,
is altruistic itself, which is an interesting idea,
yeah, I don't know.
which kind of is what's going on. I think it's like you seek absolute harmony of all people. That's basically collectivism.
It's like the harmony, the abstraction, but the harmonizer in reality, the
Yeah,
abstraction of harmonizing is like literally ripping apart people's bodies. That's the
yeah,
yeah. I
the
mean,
symbolic use of it.
I've just looked it up now, and I couldn't find anything on Soviet harmonizing or harmony, but you can find on a Confucian, like social harmony results in part
Yes.
from individual knowing his or her place in the natural order and playing his or
Yes.
her part well, similar to Plato, right? That everyone is like a cell in the body of a larger organism,
Yeah.
like an ant.
I think Plato was more metaphorical. Confucius is more literal
Right,
about the organic whole of
right.
humanity. I mean, different
Is
ways, of course, different contexts, but similar ideas.
Could you characterize this similarly as what you call what I've heard multiple times, reification, of turning an abstraction into a thing? You say society, and then you're like, society is a thing.
Yeah, if you reify it, it'd be like treating it as a individual object that does its own things,
Right.
that acts independently rather than an abstraction of parts.
Isn't this what they're all doing though, when they take society and say it's like a large body and we need society to be happy?
Yes, if you need to say that society needs to be happy as a whole, like as if society can be happy, that would be reification.
Right.
I mean, there is some relationship, of course, like capitalism itself is as a social system is a collection of interactions that result in a capitalist economy and the
Right.
flourishing that goes with it. But it's different, of course, that we're not saying that there is an organic unit that is acting.
What were you saying about the test taking bureaucracy? What was that?
In China,
Yeah.
like you had to take tests, like I think to see what role you have in the bureaucracy, or if you can join the bureaucracy, just the
Ah,
government or not.
okay. Do you know why I
And
found that
test,
interesting?
yeah,
Because let me see if I can paste this for you. Yeah, but basically it was to see if you could join the bureaucracy, right?
something like that.
Uh,
They're very much test driven in ancient China. There were tests for all kinds of things. So I don't know how they were all used, but that test taking was a thing that's more in China than I could think even
hey,
in Western philosophy.
I found something, by the way. One sec, unrelated, but then I'll find this thing about the test taking. Okay, test taking. Okay, this part.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I was actually wondering if it was, you know, how they have a concept of like benevolent despotism in China,
Yes.
and
I don't know the
but
term, but it makes
okay,
sense.
yeah, but it originates from 2200 BC because there was an emperor who, instead of letting his son carry on the dynasty, he what do you call it when you give it to someone else? He chose a
Bequeathed.
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 Yeah, he bequeathed the dynasty on a civil servant, and he set a precedent in Chinese history. So that was the Xia dynasty. And I wonder if if all of this goes back just to, if you can tie that in causally to the one event, because that set a precedent in Chinese history where like a dynasty isn't justified. It's the emperor that apparently, I don't know how much Chinese history adheres to this, but apparently, yeah. So the dynasty doesn't justify itself, but the emperor has to justify himself, and that means that you can get someone who's good and competent, like a civil servant becoming
Yes.
the emperor. And so I wonder if all of this test taking and their whole emphasis on that, even till today, is because of that.
It could be, it's like that could be a major philosophical event. Like it defined a way of seeing the state. It
Right.
defined a way of seeing
Yeah,
the
it did.
state's legitimacy. And you could say it's an essential event. I mean, I would call it essential. Or one
Emperors
of those
only.
events that make a big difference, philosophically impactful too.
Something like this. I don't know exactly what it
Yeah.
was, but yeah. And maybe Confucius codified it. Anyway, cool. Okay. So, and then back to harmony. Um, this is, I think, what I found the,
Yes.
yeah, all things harmonize. So it is the CCP.
Yeah.
And then as communist oligarchs like to say, so maybe there is a link to the harmonizer in Atlas Shrugged.
Well, I still don't think the harmonizer and Atlas Shrugged really did anything with, uniting. It's just a symbolic word, I thought. It doesn't seem to do much
Yeah,
other
but
than,
that's true. But remember, they were like, it's going to help us unify the country. That was like the reason for the
okay,
harmonizer. And
okay,
so it just turns out that what they call harmonizing is actually tearing bodies apart. And
yes,
there's a
yes,
similarity here.
yes, very
Okay.
much so.
All right. So that was very off topic. But let's go back to
Yeah, that's a very communist idea, specifically as an organic whole of the state or society.
making it
And it stems from
harmonize,
comes from Hegel, blah blah blah.
harmonizing the state.
Um, well, it's a consequence of Hegelian thinking. It's not Hegel literally, but it's that type of Hegelian thinking.
Right.
It's usually a lot of thinking of things as organic wholes.
Right.
That's the side point. It's not important.
So okay, question about let's see, the materialism.
Yep.
Okay, that is implied by Thales' view that everything is water, right?
Mm,
That the
not necessarily.
oh, okay,
I mean, water in his idea could also be something um, otherworldly. I mean, so it's not necessarily materialism.
and then you get to the atomists, and the atomists
Yeah,
say, what I was confused by the atomists because they said that everything is made out of atoms, but then
it just means reducing everything to one thing. I mean, things are made of atoms, I think, but that's everything reduces to one thing. Well, maybe that's more like monism. They're so similar.
yeah, monism was, I think,
Yeah,
Thales' view became known as monism. But
yeah.
does it? Yeah, that's what I don't get. So it doesn't follow that if everything is made out of water, there is no mind.
It doesn't
Well,
necessarily.
okay. Well, actually, maybe it sort of does. It's just on that if you go into the Greek view and you say, oh, well, in the world of appearances, there's mind, but in the true reality of of reason, which we know by reason, there is no mind. Does that? What about that?
You could do that too. I mean, that's why I say not necessarily. I mean, it
Yeah.
just
Okay.
depends on the exact thinker, but materialism would be equivalent to that, though. Materialism would require that kind of view, though, that everything reduces to some type of attribute,
Right.
which would be the material.
Right. Okay. I was still kind of confused by the atomists and how they. I think I've got more questions on that later. Anyway, like that, all their ideas just seem bizarre. At least when you listen from the lecture, and I'm trying not to superimpose my own concepts and trying to look at it from their point of view. But sometimes it's still not easy.
Yeah, I don't know enough about atomism and to tell you.
Right.
I just know it's Democritus's view, and it's very reductionist. It does reduce everything to like bouncing atoms. That's
Yeah.
all I really know.
Okay. Let's see what else I got here. Okay. So skepticism derives from Heraclitus.
Yep.
Then you get the sophists.
Especially
And then okay, so Plato, when we talk of him getting a big boost and assist from Parmenides and Heraclitus, and obviously Socrates too. So Socrates is easy to say why. But then Parmenides and Heraclitus is just because he's answering them, right? Like his whole philosophy is about dividing reality up into two worlds so he can answer and reconcile Parmenides and
I
Heraclitus.
think
And then,
so.
yeah, okay. Okay, let's see what.
Yeah. The atomists are distinct from the pluralists.
Yeah.
The people who thought everything was reducible into atoms are pluralists, which I know that the terms might be weird. Just think of pluralists. Everything is made out of many things. The
Yeah.
atomist, everything is one thing. Atomic as in singular.
But I understand that it's, I think he said something like it's a,
Oh,
it's an like it's a bad endpoint. It doesn't work because the whole point of Thales' question was, what is the thing tying all these things together in order to make sense of change or the
yeah,
multiplicity of things? And they end up just saying, everything has its own stuff. Like there's banana stuff, tomato stuff,
yeah,
iPhone stuff, which doesn't answer anything, right? Like that was the idea. And then so they went off. They basically answered Thales you could say in the wrong way, and then that's why they lost complete, that they're insignificant now.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, Democritus is an atomist, and he did think like everything just reducible to things bouncing around. That's Democritus.
Right.
Yeah. Aristotle mentions all these guys explicitly.
Right.
He's
Okay.
wrong because XYZ. Plural many, yes.
What I forgot what was in. Do you remember what Anaxagoras's view was? He was Empedocles' successor, so he was a pluralist. But I
Yeah,
forget what, because I
I don't remember.
don't remember. Me neither. Okay. Um. Oh, okay. Wait. I think. Okay. Yeah. Now I remember. Anaxagoras's view is that the the elements, like everything is contained in everything, meaning like if you have a piece of wood, there's like ash stuff already in the piece of wood, but then when it's burnt,
Yes.
it's not that there's a change, it's that the ash stuff becomes appears to your senses. So like
Yeah.
in any single piece of thing in the universe, everything is already contained in it. And then so I'm asked, like, I guess my question was, so pluralism was the world being composed of many elements and
Yes.
change. Wait, is now I don't know if that's what Anaxagoras was. I'm trying to think.
He's a pluralist. Well, that's what he wrote down anyway.
Yeah. Um, I will need to come back to this. I don't know what I was getting at here. There was something I was confused by, but I'll have to come because I can't remember now. Okay. The atomist void. Do you remember that?
Yes.
I don't get how. Okay, so they said everything is made up of atoms, and they said, okay, but what, I forgot why they said there's space, but there needs to be, reality needs to be full. So there's a thing called space, which is nothing and non-nothing at the same time. But everyone till then was sort of arguing or trying to reconcile both Parmenides and Heraclitus, and it's like a blatant violation of Parmenides. So how do you even go with it and say, well, now we're going to create, in order to help our theory, we're going to create a thing that is something and non-something at the same time?
Well, it gives a place for, logically speaking, it gives a place to almost like put everything that doesn't make sense. That's how I see it. It's like, oh, I don't get it. So that goes in the void. We'll
Right.
never understand because it's in the void. That's how I interpret it.
Right. Okay. It,
It's
but it
like
wasn't
everything in
obvious to them.
between.
Like it wasn't puzzling or obvious to them. It just seems so bizarre that you try and reconcile the view and just all you're doing is pushing all the
Yeah.
contradictions in that view into a thing called the void.
Yeah, it's like platonic, just, oh, it's in another world. That's
Right.
why. It can exist there. It does its special thing in the other
Okay.
world,
So,
which I don't even know why that's ever been a thing psychologically? Like to people like, oh, there's another world. When I die, there's another world. There's another world that exists. And at the same time, it's just weird to me.
Okay, I guess that's what they all, even Plato did that, right? Except his was more sophisticated. He just pushed it out into the
Yeah.
world of forms.
Yeah.
Okay. Because actually he said that the world of appearances is filled with the void, right? Didn't he say like it's part real, part not real? So it's like a non, he's also violating this Parmenidean principle.
Probably. Yeah.
Okay. And the only reason people didn't question it is because when you look at it now, at least when I'm trying to get into their headspace, but it's hard because when I look at this now, I'm like, well, hang on a second. Didn't we just learn about Parmenides' principle? And now you're just doing the complete opposite as a solution to his principle. It just doesn't make sense.
I mean, there's it's just one of those ideas, I think, that oh, if it's not working, do the opposite. I mean, it is that simplistic sometimes. And philosophers are no different. They just dress it up in fancy words.
Okay. All right.
That's
It's
really
still a
what I
bit
think it is.
strange.
It is strange, but in a way that the ancient Greeks have every strange character there is. You got the guy that just explains everything and by some conspiracy theory. Oh, it's them in the other world that's doing everything.
Who's that?
I don't even know. Or it could be the guy that the scientist said, oh, everything is just moving particles. Why do I care about anything else? As stupid as it sounds, I mean, it really just boils down to that, these basic ideas.
What about Cratylus, who would like refuse to speak on the principle that all words are noise since reference are not constant anyway? He bought into the Heraclitean view. There's Cratylus as well, and he would like he would beckon the non-Heracliteans to bring his food with his finger.
He's like an edgy artist.
These, I guess they take ideas seriously though. So
Yes, a pretentious artist. Like I refuse to use the word purple anymore. Or Prince saying, I'm the artist formerly known as Prince. He doesn't even call himself Prince. It's like that. Like
who
you
was
think you're so
that?
sophisticated. The musician, the rap artist, Prince. He just
I
got
didn't
rid of
know
his name.
what. I didn't know that. What?
Yeah. For a while he went by the artist formerly known as Prince. He refused to use his own name.
That's interesting.
It's that kind of
What
thing.
was his reasoning?
Something like, I don't even know, something new wavy, new agey
He
rather.
was maybe he
Like
was
it's not my
project
true essence or
yeah, maybe he
something
was
like that.
projecting something from the world of forms.
Probably. It's that kind of insanity though. That you can even get those ideas even today. I mean, as bizarre as it is, that's kind of what philosophers have done.
Right. So oh yeah. Okay, so Anaxagoras' position of multiplicity of stuffs is basically hopeless because you end up just rejecting Thales' desire to find the one in the many.
Yeah.
Okay, so then my question is, why did they? Okay, in the first place, why did they so strongly believe in this common denominator? Is it something like because ice can become water and water ice, or the acorn seed can become an acorn tree? There must be something in each that makes it or connects it to the other. Is that sort of the like they're making an inference here? They're saying like everything must be related, so we must look for the one in the many.
Um,
Um,
I would bet it's more related to the culture, related to the sort of mythology they have. It goes to derived side. That's what I would bet. That derives something more in their culture or their art more so. I
what do
would
you mean?
guess like it might have to do with ideas about where the gods come from or where the reality was or how the earth came to be, or things like that. I think that might influence that they care about finding the common or finding the abstract or finding something like that. That's what I
I
think.
didn't quite get it. Like what would they see in an artist or a play that would make them want to find a common denominator for all of
Well,
reality?
the values expressed in it. I mean, that wherever they derive their cultural values, which could be stemmed from like uh, their particular god, and that, well, I'm not sure enough about the Greek mythology to say where
Okay.
their traditional ideas come from. I can't give a good reason why anyone in particular would want to find a common denominator, but it seems to be a very Greek thing. So it must be something about some common ideas. That's where it started, at least.
But
Then maybe
isn't
some
it,
guy was,
yeah,
oh,
isn't
go
it
ahead.
Thales then? Didn't it start with Thales? That was my understanding. This whole line of
Yeah,
this mode of thinking was Thales in origin. So it's like he was the innovator, but
yeah,
then why did he, like, are you saying that, do you think his whole questioning and his line of thinking in the fragment on, it's only a fragment, obviously, on this issue is because of Greek culture? Or are you saying,
probably. I
okay,
think that he asked the question, but where
yeah,
did he get the question is what I'm trying to say. Where did
okay,
Thales get the question?
but
Probably something about the culture. I mean, if you were coming from you're the first philosopher that ever existed, where are you going to get your influences from? That's how I'm approaching that question. Where are you going
Da
to get your
Vinci,
questions from?
Da Vinci's an example of that, though. Like, he, in his culture, he invented
Yeah,
a lot by himself, and he made a lot of innovations in both painting and in even in anatomy, because he'd dissect people secretly at night so he wouldn't be
yeah,
attacked by the church. And but the conditions of his culture somewhat gave him that ability, but it was still all him, right?
yeah. I mean, it depends on the
So
individual, of
maybe,
course.
yeah.
I mean, that's a really tricky question. In what way the did pre-Thales, how did people think about philosophy? It's one of those questions. That's kind of what I mean
Mm,
by cultural.
yeah. Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
led to what was their pre-philosophy? What was their mythology philosophy?
I
And it
think,
wasn't religion per se, but they had a philosophy as far as mythology and creation and the nature of man.
okay. Maybe what you're getting at is, I think it's a different question though, but maybe you're getting at this. He did say this. This is not my. I think this makes sense, but it's not my thinking. This is straight from Peikoff. He said that the reason why uh, philosophy developed, philosophy in the sense of being, as he described, self-conscious, systematic, and critical, developed in Greece was because of their religion and their comparative political freedom. But so that's why you get philosophy, because one, you're allowed, and two, you're not trying to escape out of the prison. You're focused on understanding the world you're in. And okay, so from that's what he's saying. That's how you get philosophy. But then from there, the question of what is the one thing uniting, what is the one thing, what unites the diversity of everything you see in the world? What's the one in the many, whatever, however else he terms it? That is, I'm guessing, is a question unique to Thales. So maybe you were
Probably.
getting at the fact that the 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 mythology, the anthropomorphic religion, the religious freedom, or whatever, that enabled Thales to exist. So he's there because of that. But then his questions about the one and the many, I think, are separate. And I was like trying to work out where they're from.
I
What do you
mean,
think of that?
it originated the question in his own mind,
Sorry, you
but
just broke up for a second.
it could be that he originated questions.
Yeah.
Skeptical, the first philosopher would be exactly. I
Yeah.
would take more the belief that he was reasoning from something, at least
Yeah.
something about mythology or something about what average Greek understood.
Yeah.
So that would be something particular to their culture that he's beginning with. And that's his start content.
Yeah.
Whatever it
Okay.
might be, that's what he has to work with, which is so context heavy that it's hard to get, well, you could get good questions. So, but it's more like
But
his own reasoning ability.
okay, to question your viewpoint though, what about Aristotle? Didn't he come up with entirely new concepts where there was no precedent yet in the culture?
Yes, So I mean, that part's hard to disentangle. What
Yeah.
exactly was new? What exactly was prior? There's always
Yeah.
a
Okay.
little bit of both. And
All right.
obviously Aristotle was addressing Plato. Other times he addressed things that only came from Aristotle's own questions. Some
So I
questions he
guess,
asked that apply only to himself. Others apply to Plato and his culture.
okay. So I guess you're saying it's speculation. We don't know with Thales, but okay. Regardless of if it's Thales or was already in the Greek culture, what do you think of the line of reason? Like, how does one go from, so we don't know. We're going to say, okay, there's a fragment of Thales. We don't know if he came up with this or got it from someone else, but um, this line of how does even one get to that point where they're saying there must be, is it this what I've written down, where like you see relationships, so like there's one thing in every other that lets it turn into a different thing? Is that the line of reasoning, or is it?
All I think you could do is come up with the best possibility.
Yeah, okay.
Psychologically, that's possible, but I
Yeah,
don't think
okay.
we can do anything more
Yeah.
than say psychologically. Could he
Yeah.
have done that? Yeah, he could have.
Okay. Yeah, what do you know much about? I guess you said you don't know much about the atomists, so maybe we can skip this. But why did they? Do you know why they thought like if something's solidly packed, you can't cut it?
Um, I'm I'm not sure why. I would only
Yeah.
be guessing.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think I don't know if this is going to be a big question, so I'm going to try to find something that's easy. Okay, there's more stuff about the atomists which we can skip because I think
Yeah, I don't know enough about them.
yeah.
About them specifically, I don't know.
Do you know if there was anyone determinist before the atomists?
Probably not. I don't know if
No.
there's even enough time in history for there to have been.
Okay, this is a lot of stuff about the atomists. I'm just gonna keep
Yeah.
going down and make
Yeah,
it blue.
I'm not sure how important that is in the first place. I mean, it's
Yeah,
interesting, but it's not even that big in history of philosophy, I think, unless you're really into Greek philosophy. Then it would
right.
come up a lot. Like
I
Aristotle
was
addresses them a lot, but beyond that, it doesn't really matter. Where you got the basics, and that's what counts.
yeah, I was trying to understand their viewpoint because there are a lot of things that just didn't make sense. But
Yeah, but
that's
I think you just go on forever, like delving into it, unless you
right.
like your point as a special interest.
All right. Okay, I got it. Because you're saying like every philosopher is going to be like that. They say all these things that don't make any sense.
Yeah, you just got to get the essential, and I think that's the value of Peacock's lectures. He always point out the essential point.
Right.
And you could delve into it if you're curious, but it's not essential because if you get this, you'll be able to follow generally
Got it.
trends in philosophy and basic
Okay.
ideas.
Got it. Um, what do you make any? Is there any difference to you between an ethical subjectivist and an ethical relativist if you're talking about the sophists, or if you talk
Well, I
about
don't know. I talk
anyone?
about the sophist, but talk about anyone. Yeah, I
Huh,
distinguish.
what?
A subjectivist would say, well, it really doesn't matter one way or another what anybody does. Ethical relativist is more like certain types are better than others. Certain ethics are better than others. So at least there's a ranking for the relativist. Relative to something else, like X is better than Y.
Is there isn't objectivist relativist then? Because it would say that objectivist ethics is better than any other ethics.
Yeah, but it also said it's the right one. Not
Right.
just
Okay.
that it's better, but it is correct.
Ah, okay. So in the case of a relativist, you can have a rank, but you don't seem to have a standard.
You couldn't have a way to say which is that you've got the best or the right one.
Right.
You
Okay.
couldn't say I got the right one. You just
What's
could
an
say I got a better one. That's all you could say to a
what's an
relativist.
example of a relativist ethics
Nietzsche.
philosophy? Oh, Nietzsche.
Nietzsche's like straight. Everything's ranked, but he has no He says there is no true no right answer.
Ah,
That's pretty much Nietzsche.
interesting. But he doesn't say you can do whatever the hell you want and it doesn't matter.
He doesn't say it doesn't matter. It matters. It's just like you're not going to find the correct one. There is no
Okay.
objective correct ethics, just better and worse. That's all
Right.
you've got, according to Nietzsche.
Got it.